Good morning and welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us for today's Sage Fixed Assets user group session. I'm Tani DeGeorge. I'm the product marketing manager for Sage Fixed Assets, and I'm so glad to be here with you today to introduce our topic, which is all about reporting. Now, whether you're not using the reporting module yet, or you're already familiar with it, but maybe you want to get more out of your reporting and just feel more confident and efficient doing it, then you're certainly in the right place today. Now, after all, reporting isn't just about the generating totals, right? It's about surfacing insights, tracking the right metrics, and making more confident data-driven decisions every day. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. With the exception of our host, everyone is currently in listen-only mode. Now, that's to minimize background noise, and trust me, you'll actually appreciate that. But we will open the lines for live Q&A toward the end of the session today. Always feel free to submit your questions, though, at any time using the questions panel in your GoToWebinar dashboard. And now on to the best part of things. I am delighted to introduce today's host, Angela Bolton. Many of you are already familiar with Angie because she's the go-to expert on all things Sage Fixed Assets and fixed assets management in general. She brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to every session we have, and today's topic is certainly no exception. It's one that we know a lot of you also have been very eager to explore, so that's exciting for us, and we're happy to have Angie here today to do that. She is going to guide us through reporting best practices, everything from how to generate meaningful reports and track key asset metrics to tips on using built-in tools to support those smarter data-driven decisions that I mentioned. Now, really, it doesn't even matter if you're a reporting pro or you're just getting started. This session is designed to meet you where you're at and keep you moving forward with confidence. So enough from me. All right, Angie, good morning and welcome. Let's dive right over to you. Hi.
Yep. Look at me, I'm just ready to go.
Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for that introduction, Tani, and welcome to everyone online today who could join us. And I just want to say thank you for the reschedule. I was really not feeling well, and you would have been able to understand me anyway. So thanks for readjusting your schedule to join us today.
We're glad you're feeling better, Angie. And just a quick note on that is that we will record today for those who haven't been able to join us, and we'll make sure they get a copy of it. So appreciate it.
Excellent. I was going to ask that. Sweet. Okay, so let's dive in. We only have a limited time, and I want to make sure that we go into the software and show you what we're about to talk about. The slides, which are very, very short. Okay. So the importance of reporting, just obvious things, but I always like to bring them out just in case someone has an aha moment, right? So helps us track life cycles from acquisition to disposal, meaning like the whole life cycle of fixed assets, right? That's the importance of reporting. Not only is that, but it helps us it keeps us informed of data trends, decisions that we could be doing with our accurate data. We can also start reporting on data to see what is inaccurate and fix that as we see fit, right? So when we start seeing things from a broad perspective, we can start seeing data trends in our analysis, right? So, because at the end of the day, for me, what I've noticed is data is just patterning, right? And we can start seeing those patterns if we know how to effectively report on them. So reports, again, reveal trends. They also assist us with compliance risks, open holes of data where we can do process improvement, data cleansing improvement, and so forth. And then, of course, it always should all of our reporting, regardless of what systems we're using, should always support anything we do outside of our system. So whether it be tax filing, strategic planning with other departments or divisions, getting us ready for M&A support, or even property tax, insurance, or anything else that touches fixed assets along the way. So reporting tools in Sage that we're going to talk about today is the asset list view. It's really powerful. A lot of people don't really understand all the complexity and tools that they have available within just this view alone. There's a lot of different things that we can do. We can save different views, which also gets us to custom views where we can reuse these formats. You can do it by user and purpose. And if you have multiple companies in one Sage database and you create these views, you'll see these views show up in the other companies so that you're not doing redundancy, right, in the system, which is very powerful in itself. I'm going to walk through the report writer bridge. We are not going into Crystal today. That's its own thing. But I'm going to show the bridge between the two, which came out in about 2012, and I've loved it ever since. So I want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. If you don't have it, it's because you don't have the report writer addition function. But if you see it today and you want it, call your sales rep. Okay, Global Task Manager, we're going to go into Premier only, which is the SQL version of the system. Again, not knowing everyone's version on the call today or who is recording it, who signed up to see it. But we are going to touch base on a few extra aspects and helpful tips and tools within the Premier only, which is the Global Task Manager. If you have multiple companies, multiple databases, and you don't want to go in one by one, if you're new to the system and you haven't seen this before, this will really save a lot of time and effort. I've used this before when I was at a company with 120 companies in FAS, and then some clients that have had 200, 300, 400 companies in FAS. This is the way to go. And then utility ports, a lot of people these days don't even know this exists. I love this. It really is helpful to see an oversight of data. These were originally built in the system based off Sarbanes-Oxley reporting, so SOX reports, which help you understand your users, your user rights in the system, also different things that have happened to the assets. So we'll touch base lightly on that. It's at the end, just in case of timing. But again, I really think these are so important as an overall guidance for your data. So live demo, again, super short PowerPoint is pretty much it. We're going to go through the asset snapshot, what we've seen there before. Sometimes people, especially if they're a new user to the system, the prior user has turned that off when they enter in the system. And so maybe you don't even know it's there, right? But they're their own reports. If they're not just a view, a snapshot of your data, but they're also printable graphical reporting. So that change every time your data changes. So it updates itself. So I want to touch base on that. And where do you go to find it again? Asset list, the standard reports, customizing some of those standard reports, which ones you can't really customize. Custom export, which a lot of people, again, especially if you're a new user to the system, don't know where that's at, what that's about. But if there's something that you cannot seem to find to get out of the system in a report, a lot of times this happens because we don't have enough real estate, right? We can only print out on an 8.5 by 11 most of the time. And so we can only squeeze so much on that landscape. If you have a lot of data you want to get out all at once, custom export is probably your next bet if it's not through the asset list, okay? So I'll show you where that's at, run through it really fast. And then Global Task Manager, add utility reports again towards the end, okay? So I am going to stop sharing my screen over there, or actually I'm going to end my slideshow for a sec, close out my Teams, close out that, and right into the software. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. Not sure if it was still sharing or it was sharing clean. I don't know what that means sometimes. So
No. It's always good to double check.
Totally good. Yeah, exactly. So when I'm in the Assistance Center, do remember that there are key, points here and guidance on running reports. These are kind of like the top questions here. I know a lot of people go to this screen and then just get into the system, but there are a lot of different tools and tips here that people often overlook. So don't forget that even running reports can be accessed through here. So I'm going to go open a company, my little sample company here. Again, this is just a sample, really small assets. This is the same sample company anyone can import when they, or, install when they do the installation. This is the asset snapshot. Here, I want to talk about this just very briefly, again, because of timing. But you can toggle between different books. If you had 11 books open, they would appear here too as well, obviously. But this kind of gives you, again, a snapshot, cleverly named, I like to say, of what your assets look like as of today, as of last depreciation date, as of last asset entry. And it gives you just these nice, beautiful graphics. I love our asset snapshot. I think it's come a long way from when it was first introduced. It's beautiful right now. Thank you to the product development team. And there's 4 different things that we can choose from. We can do in service by quarter, you know, so if you want to toggle between different, you know, different books, depreciation comparison. This is really, really good, especially if you've gone through purchase price allocation or anything through an M&A situation or a cost seg or a bunch of impairments, and you have different costs between your books. As long as you have a rolling number, then you're fine. But this is a really good, very high level overview is how I've used it in the past with customers and myself as a user, where I can see if there's something off, there's a variance that I wasn't expecting, then that tells me that those assets weren't populated, right, in those other books that seem off. So this is a really good overview just to see, are we on the same page here? Acquisition comparison, this is good for trending, right, and for budgetary purposes going into the future. And then of course, same, this is really good for budgetary. And see this little print button? I think it's a little small at the bottom. So I think a lot of people think that I can only view this, but you can actually print these and it prints exactly what you see here. Okay. Again, display on startup, this is what I was talking about. If you're a new user and you don't see this, it's probably because somebody prior to you, you know, selected this, and so you don't see it when you come in. Or deselected, I should say. But again, think of it as a report. So it's, you know, clearly labeled under reports, but, and asset snapshot. So think of it as reports. If you want to find it later, it'll be under the report section. Okay. So now that we're here, I want to talk about asset lists. I always, you know, when I used to sell this product, I love doing these demos because it kind of sold itself at this level. There was so much that you could do at this level when you first come in that it's like, you know, you don't even have to really dive in deep if you don't need to. There's so much you can do here. And I think that a lot of people don't know this. So I thought it was really important to have this in the users group today. And that's why I labeled it report writing. This really acts as a mini report writer if you know what you're doing within the asset list view, right? So I know that this is just how it looks out of the box. We call it the restore system defaults. It just has our descriptive information, you know, just descriptive fields in the standard Roman format. Before we do anything, we can even drag and drop these. And a lot of people don't even know that. I know that people have used this for 10, 20 years and didn't even know you could do that function. So again, another reason why I wanted this user group session. So there's a lot of things you could do here, but if you want to customize it for your own needs, you could go to customize asset list. And in here, you can add additional things or take things out of this view, right? You can move the columns up and down so they stay that way. You can select what book you want information for. And so it's really quite powerful. What these little asterisks mean is that there's their currency, right? So you can add totals, the totals automatically. And so I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to select, you can multi-select by hitting the control key. If you want all, you can do the shift, you know, select them all over here. But I'm going to do value, year to date, and net book value. I don't care about that. I want estimated life because everybody wants estimated life in their reports. I get it. Same with place of service date, right? So I'm going to move this over. Since this is internal, I want to make sure it's internal. And then I don't want to see a lot of these things because I'm just simply not using them, right? They're hidden and I don't use these. Then I'm just going to eliminate them altogether, right? And maybe I want, because I'm an accountant by nature, and I want my things in place, right? So I can either use it up and down, I can select and drag and drop, right? I can do whatever I want. So I'm going to put all these, I'm going to put all these together. So I'm just a nerd that way, right? It's okay to nerd out, right? That's why we're here. I mean, if anyone's in accounting and computers, it's just part of our DNA, right? So, and then I'm gonna move my value down to where it makes sense. And then if I have some fields, then I want it to automatically do that for me, okay? So then I hit this sum fields at the bottom, and then I'm gonna click OK. And then it refreshes. I move my cursor over and you'll see that they're in that order, and this is what the sum field means. It totals it for me at the bottom, which is cool. If I didn't do that for this field, I could just double click on this field. I just double clicked and it showed instead. So I have a lot of options without having to do so many different clicks, right? Now, if I want to, I can save this view by going to My Views at the very top right corner, and I can give it a name. I'll say Angie's Flick Nerdy View. I don't know, I'm feeling very creative today. So I'm going to add it, and then I'm going to close. And so if I go out of this company, so I'm going to close, and we go back in. And that again. I'm going to scroll over, and it still keeps my view, which is awesome, right? So that's awesome. But let's say somebody else came in, they don't want that view. You can go back in here, apply this view now, and now this view is here. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah. What's really cool about this is that I know in fixed assets, we often get a high level. I just want to see the high level bare bones data for this particular group of assets and a quick summary, right? So I could say my groups, these are my manufacturing groups, and I want to get back to Angie's Nerdy View with my totals, close. And now I see those. And here's my totals. And what I can do now is select them all and export it to Excel. Now I don't have Excel on my server, but it's just like anything else. It goes right to Excel. And what it does is it opens it in a very flat file. So you don't have to unmerge, unwrap any of that baloney. You literally just drops it there with your subtotals or your totals, I mean. So, yeah.
Nerds
Maybe
rule.
now. What's that?
Nerds rule.
I mean, I love being a nerd. Oh, I lied. Maybe we got upgraded and we got Excel on my server. Yay! So anyway, it opens right away, which is awesome. So anytime you're doing the asset list view, do note that it does open Excel right away with your export, which is actually good because then we get to see what our data looks like if it goes there. I don't know, it's rolling. I don't know. I think I lied about my Excel, but regardless, it works like a miracle. So this really does work like a mini report writer. So a lot of times when customers are coming to me and saying, well, I can't get all this on a sheet, I'm like, have you used asset lists? Because look at that, So instead of doing a custom export with not that it's horrible, I think it's awesome and it's very fast. The custom export has like a wizard for a 6-step process or something. This is, if you know what you could do here, it's easy. So then some people say, well, I have to reconcile that against my tax. Well, that's okay. It's really not like, oh my God, that's going to take me forever. It literally is just go back to the asset list view, select tax, let it refresh itself, and do another export really fast, and then marry the two together. It's super fast. There's no formatting necessary. Well, Excel is so picky sometimes. That's why I always joke because it's like we always want to get people out of Excel just so they can put their data back into Excel. Anyway, so these views are amazing. And then if I have multiple companies within the same database, right? Then when I go into those companies, I'll see these views there too, so I don't have to keep redoing them. Now, these views aren't user specific. So if you have 5, 10 users in the same companies, you're all going to share the same views. That's kind of why you want to either put like your initial in front or off to the end of it or something so you know they're theirs. I always say in a multi-user environment for groups, like which queries, reports, anything that's custom that you can save, it's not by user, always put your initials so that people know not to touch it. I would hope that they would know not to touch it, but people are human. Okay. You can also modify these views and update them, of course, as you see here. So there's lots of things that you can do here. And I just think it's so important to show because it's so customizable. And I actually use it more than I ever thought I would. So, so that is asset list. Okay. Then we're going to go to standard reports. I love this because in my 27 years of breathing, eating, sleeping, dreaming about fixed assets, again, back to the nerdy bit, Tawny, there's like 28 standard reports, and I always get at least once a month still today. This report doesn't match this report. What's the problem? And my answer to that is always the same. There are 28 standard reports for a reason. They do not all print on the same information. Some are including assets that aren't active in your current period. Some are. Some are including inactive assets or disposed assets activity from previous years, and some are not. You really have to, read into the description of the report itself to really understand what it's reporting on. If all the reports were supposed to report exactly the same, we would not have 28 standard reports, correct? We would probably have 2. So keep that in mind. Now, there's a way that you can there's a couple ways you can access reports, and some people don't know this either. If I go here, there's standard reports. Now, over the time of using this system, I've realized why these are sectioned out. I mean, as from a user standpoint, these are reports that we would run most of the time to just see from a high level of our depreciation, right? These are reports that are typically involve activities of our assets, disposals, adjustments, transfers. These are like, it's okay if we run these. We don't need to run these all the time. Like the fixed asset summary is the roll forward. It's just called fixed asset summary, but it's really the roll forward report. So these are things that we would run either quarterly, annually, or upon request. And then these are like for insurance and property tax, right? The subsets. I always like to say fixed assets is a spider body, and then all these subsets are like its little legs because fixed assets go everywhere. Okay, there's custom reports. These are the ones that you customize. Again, it's not by user, so always put your initial. Tax reports are just that. They're tax reports, and then the snapshot, right? So, but there's another way that you can access this. If I go to reports on the navigation for the left side towards the bottom, and what's different and nice about this is that I can say standard reports. I can select one and it tells me the description. And this is where I'm saying, this is where you can slow down a little bit, right? Read what this is reporting on so you understand the differences of why we have 28 standard reports, right? So the summary is different. This report displays information based on the last depreciation for the selected assets, where depreciation expense runs after you calculate, which just is a little different, right? So they're not going to be the same. Whereas the summary gives you the balance, and it also gives you a snapshot of what it looks like. So if you're new to the system, either a new user or you've adopted this as as part of your process, this is a great learning tool in the system. If you go through the navigation to reports, this allows you to not only understand what's reporting on it and what your options are for configuration, but also lets you see a good snapshot without having to go to the configuration part and then look at the tab. Because a lot of people forget that tab's there, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then you can section these out just like they are from the menu, but you have a different visual. So everyone learns differently. If you're a real visual learner like myself, this is a great starting point. And then batch reports, you can create batches. We have like monthly, year end. Create a batch is just, giving it a name. You can edit batches where you can, select any of these reports that you want, even your custom reports, add it to your batch. Okay, batches are cool, but they're only per company, right? So not like a global run. It's just for per company. So if you have one company with all your assets, or you just have a few companies that are easy to manage, or different users in different companies, these batches are probably extremely helpful. And then you can send them to obviously PDF or to a printer, right? And you can run them all at once. So that's where batches are helpful, and they are here and available. And now, as of a couple versions release ago, I can't remember the version release number exactly, but now you can add 4562s and 4797 tax reports to your batches as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was 2025.1.
Yeah, I feel like it was just recent. So thank you, Tawny. Yep. Okay, so if I pick one of these reports, I like to pick on the net book value report or the fixed asset summary. I'm going to do the summary report because people always ask, is there a roll forward? And it's been here since I remember. I mean, I started this in 1998 and it's been there ever since. So again, this is why I love having these user group sessions, because people think we have a roll forward and it's been there literally the whole time. So this is what the report definition dialog box looks like. I'm sure everyone on here is very familiar with what this looks like. We have our different groups, right? Our different groups of assets that we put together, our queries. We have our different books. Everybody knows that. Depending on what the report is that you're choosing, you might have different run dates. Either it's only from the current through date, which makes sense because that's what the report is built specifically for, or you'll have other dates to choose from. And then you'll always have configuration options. Again, it switches depending on what you're, trying to report on. So if I hit this, I only have these options. You always have, no matter what, you always have subtotal options or details, okay? Always. So I'm gonna go back to my fixed asset summary. Okay, this is really important for the roll forward. This is why I'm picking on this report, because if you see here, it has different options summarized without activities. This means we have assets in here that haven't been depreciating, right? And so they're not hitting our GL anymore. They may not be showing up on our reports. Certain reports aren't showing up because it's not current year, but maybe I want to see them on the high level in this report. If you want to do that, it will summarize it at the end of your report, okay? So this is one choice. Asset count's always good. Extended description is awesome, but just be wary that when you do this, you will column wrap. So if you're column wrapping your report data and you export it out, it's a nightmare. And every system I've ever tested or beta tested for fixed assets does the exact same thing. So it's not like, and actually SAP and Oracle do it even worse. So instead of creating one, and what do I mean? I mean, in Excel, instead of one row per asset with all the information in line, with the extended description, it'll wrap it into two. So you have asset information in two rows that you then have to join together, which is a nightmare when we, again, get our data back out to Excel for other purposes and means. Whereas SAP and Oracle do it with multiple rows for one asset, which is even more of a nightmare. So, and so a workaround for that, which is nice, is the custom report. So if you have Report Writer, I can take this report, I can hit Customize Report, and this is the bridge I was talking about that came out in 2012. So this bridge is awesome. It allows me to make any changes on this without having to go into the Crystal interface, which is so challenging. It's so many bells and whistles. I used to teach a class on that and hardly anyone ever got it. It's so powerful, but it's also so complicated. This allows us to customize these reports without going into that interface and taking more training, right? And what we can do with that then is that we can pick our fields by category or by all of them in alphabetical order. So I can find description and I'm adding it to by report. You can see here that these are my column widths, my spacing, my, basically the real estate we talked about at the beginning where it's 8.5 by 11. I have to have some margins. I need some space between my data, yada, yada. In here, this is already telling us what the margins are on the left and the right of the paper. Maybe I am gonna make it landscape and make it wider, but I'm gonna stick with 8.5 by 11 for this session. What we can do now is we can move this up. So we can move this up a little bit. Okay, so now I have it right next to my system number and I have it really long. But what do I not need out of this, or what can I make smaller? If I know that, I want all these to be same, then I need to mess with my margins. Now I know this is pretty big, and you can see that this is going down. So red means I'm out of my margin space, okay? What I need to do is just like in accounting, we don't want any red, right? We don't want to go in the red. We don't want any of the red in our reporting either. So we might need to change with this, or we may just need to make this smaller. Maybe we don't need it that big. Maybe we just need, oops, smaller, Angie, not bigger. And now we're getting somewhere, right? Or maybe I don't need the extension because I don't have any partials. So now I just made more space, right? And so you keep going until you make space. And so now I could move this back to 0.05 to keep it. And now I have more wiggle room. What does that mean? That means I can add my extension back but make it smaller if I know it's only going to be like 2 characters. Or I can add something else in if I want, like class code is always fun because it's only 2 characters. Oop. I can also make this just a little smaller if I want. I can then also provide it with a different header. I can say, call it what it is. I can say, you know, created by Angela, all these different things. And then I can view how it looks. So this needs to be changed. Maybe I need to move class. So I need to come back over here and I need to move things around. So you just keep playing with it until you get the way you want. Now, again, we're working with paper size. It's not the limitations of the system, which I really want to hone in on, because a lot of people say, how come this report doesn't have this and doesn't have this? And how come we have to wrap it? And it's because, well, because we've had 30,000 customers over 40 years almost say that the standard for reporting for depreciation expense or a roll forward is this. And we can't accommodate everyone in a standard report. But what we can do is offer you to customize those reports, add what you want. Again, we're playing with a piece of paper, right? That's why it's good to utilize the asset list view for something beyond the paper, making it wide so you have more space. Yes. So now I have more space if I want to move things around. It always messes with my margin when I do that, which always makes me a little upset, but that's the crystal part, not the FAS part. And so that allows us to work more within the confines of paper, right? Again, it's not the system, it's the paper size. And I feel like I always have to say that because people forget. We live in this world, this digital world, where we think everything should just be as is, but we're still limited to paper. So keep that in mind. And then we save as. Notice I can't save over the top of it. That's good. And then we can call it. Okay. And then I'm in a multi-user environment, just so that I follow what I preach, right? And now I have a sub report in this yellow, and now I can run this report the way I want to with sorts, subtotals, or whatever. Now, here's the thing. Any of these reports, you can do a format, and you can override a group sort. What does that mean? That means I built a query of assets with, you know, a sort and subtotal, but maybe, or somebody else before me did, and I don't want that anymore. You can override that if you need to. They would be pre-populated here, so you'd know if it had one or not. If not, you can create your own, right? So I'm going to come in here. Looks like somebody created a crappy one of my sample, but I'm going to go here, and depending on what field you choose, you might have different options here: subtotals, year totals, no totals, whatever, subtotals. Now, this is going to be really cool when I run this report. Now, if I have a company that has all companies in one, right? It's a consolidated company. So it has maybe 20 different companies in here that we've put by location. So let me use that as an example. And location is not on my report. Remember, I didn't put that as a field on report. So here I'm going to do location with subtotals, and I'm going to do a page break. That means that each location will have its own report. And this is how you can use the power that's in the Sage Fixed Asset system to report on your data however you need to, or is required or requested from you. You just have to know how to use it, right? So if I have one company that's consolidated in one database with 20, 30, 100, 200 companies, right? And I want to report that I have subtotals by each company without having to dump it out in Excel. And maybe I just want it in subtotals so I can see in a high level. Then utilize these tools as much as possible. This is how you can do that. You don't even have to have the page break if you just want to do it with subtotals. But you have the options. And that's what I want to point out is you have options, okay? That it's your data. The Sage system does not limit you on how you want to get it out. It's your data. We're giving you so many options. And obviously, there's still probably a few more that we could do, but this is a pretty good start, right? And you can also see the layout here, which I was talking about, which is different here, right? So we have different options, and that's the usability that's so nice in this product. You can add to favorites. Favorites just kind of drop it into a different spot on the list. But if you have 10, 20 users in your system and they're all doing favorites, so that's not helping anybody. Just remember that, okay? When I save this, if I save this, now every time I run this report, I don't have to do these configurations again. And that's what that save really means. A lot of people also don't understand that piece. But when I go to all this trouble of configuring the way I want this report to run every single time, then I do it and I save. And now every time I come in here, I select that report, what's going to happen? It's going to save all of my stuff again. I come here, all my configurations are saved. I don't have to do a thing. Okay, now I just keep rerunning it. Now I want to show you one more before we go into other stuff based on time. If I go to depreciation expense, and this is where the money really is. If I go to depreciation expense, I can customize this report because the depreciation expense is very broad for many use cases, right? Again, 30,000 customers, 40 years of business, we have to appease the world. So in this case, our depreciation expense can be used for tax and internal, but maybe internal obviously is running once a month, where tax maybe just does quarterly and annually, right? So 5 times a year, where we're doing it 12 times a year. So what we might want to do is create our own version. So this doesn't apply to us. We can take it out, right? Now we're giving more space. If there's other things in here that don't make sense to us and how we use it, then we can eliminate those things. If we want to put in, again, let's say we don't have any partials. We just don't do that in our practice. We could take that out. We can do all these different things. We can go back to depreciation, we'll go to general fields. This is how you can kind of get there faster. Anything that's descriptive about the assets. And I want to choose my description. I'm going to move that up again. Here I am again with my description. I know, but it is nice to have without it wrapping, especially if I'm trying to get it into something else, right? And I'm going to make it a little smaller. Okay, and then maybe I want to put location because I am using multi-locations, and that's important for me to track. How much did I have left? Oh, it's 250. Oh, I have to make this. Actually, it would be a little smaller. Okay, and then maybe I want to move that up. Right next to it. Okay, so I can save this internal, and then maybe. Okay, so I'll get out of there. And I always want that. I don't need any wrapping. And then maybe I do want with subtotals. It's cool. Okay, save. Now I'm going to close this. And then when I go to depreciate, this is what's really awesome, is I can do this, set my date, but now I can choose my own version. And what that means is that when I run depreciation and it automatically comes out, I have my own version. So I see a lot of times in the past, with customers, when I just kind of see what and how they're using the system before I give them some tips and tricks is I'll see them take the standard depreciation expense, export it out, mess with it just to put in the stuff that I just showed you. And wouldn't it be nice, and it is, if I could just create my report that way so that I don't have to do anything once I run it. And that is the whole point of showing you all of these different options, is that we're trying to get you out of Excel as much as possible, and that our system does allow that to happen if you know how to use it, right? So that is the report writer. Again, I think you have to have the report writer option. If you don't, you can add it on. That allows you to do the things I just showed you, okay? So custom export, let's go through that just to stay on time, and we'll take questions in a little bit. We go to custom export. So if I go to File, Utilities, this is where we also can import our data. but this is where we can export to. So again, if we're limited to the amount of, data that we need, there are some things that you can't put on the asset list at the moment. So not all fields will go there, but most of them. But if you still need more fields and more size requirements, right, space beyond the paper, the export is amazing. Now you can only export one company and one book at a time, but that seems to be okay for the vast majority of people. So if I go to here, I can select, it takes me to this wizard, and I can select any group. So these groups follow me everywhere, which is also great. So if, again, someone just wanted to see those manufacturing assets, we could do that as well. And then we go next, we can create a saved map or create a new map. Or if this is something that we've adopted now as a new process for this particular request, we can save that map, recall it, and then it cuts our time down. Okay, so those are options. I can say internal. If you're using the tracking module, here's more integration for you. You can also pull those fields and the depreciation fields all at the same time, and you're only doing one export process. Okay. Next, now I can select all these fields. Literally, sometimes when I'm cleaning data, after people have used it forever, they have tons of turnover, and their data is probably pretty messy. It's pretty much 100% of the time there's some mess in it. We can just, a lot of times I just take all of them, carry them all over. I don't include the company data, which means the name and stuff. I literally just want the column headers so that I'm literally working in a flat file, and I could just keep moving through it and do a filter, right? And then I can go next. This is where you can save the map, and then you just give it a name, tell you want to put it next, and it'll dump it out exactly. This is kind of gives you what's happening. It'll dump it out, tell you the assets, and you literally open it in a CSV file. Okay, so that is another option of getting your data out of the system. Again, for the custom export, the only thing again is one company, one database, one book at a time. And you have to put your own sums at it, but we all know that's easy. That's a one click in Excel, right? At the bottom sum. So that's the difference with that. But again, no limitations there on your data. Okay. So global task, and then I'm going to go to utility reports, and then we'll take some questions. Okay. So global task manager is a Premier, which is the SQL version of the Sage Fixed Asset system. If you are multi-user with a lot of assets and a lot of companies, and if you're not, but you have a lot of companies that are separate, like not in one, global task is your only route, to be quite honest. It saves you so much time and effort that if you are on the network version with 20 plus companies or more within your system, you should consider upgrading to the Premier version, because it'll pay for itself just by your time alone. Okay, so global task is, again, I obviously love it. If I go to File, Global Task Manager, I use this religiously and build processes and policy around it at a large corporation, because they had 99 companies, and this was the only way to create standardization, which is also important. So Angie's Global Task Manager Time Saver. Okay, add to run depreciation. Oop, is not true. Anytime people are watching you type, you can't type. So I could select multiple companies. I could literally select all my companies. Okay, I could select all of them, push them over here. Oh yeah, I can't. That's not completely true, because I don't have Canada and Gov. So they're all here. If I had multiple databases, I could also select from multiple databases. So I can literally just, if I had 10 databases, go through each database, add them all here. Okay. So again, if you have multiple databases, multiple companies, you can add them all at once. Select events. Look at this very first one. This is a godsend. oh my God, I don't have to go into 100 plus companies or 20 companies and run depreciation one by one. This is great. This is where the time saving comes in. Now I can just I'll have the system process depreciation on all these all at once for me. And that alone is time saving. And at the same time, I'm going to have it also, and these are only standard reports because, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Here's depreciation, expense reports. So these are going to happen in order. It's like a batch, but it's pretty phenomenal. So it's going to run depreciation. I'll have to define event in just a minute. I'm going to run my expense report, and then I'm going to have it run my GL posting report for each company. Then I'm going to have it run my disposal report, transfers if that applies to you. And then I'm also going to have it run my roll forward, which is the fixed asset summary. So all of these reports, after it's done depreciating, excuse me, is going to run all of these in order for each company on its own, and it just runs in the background. Okay, that you can do other things while it's processing. Okay, I'm going to define my event. So I'm going to say which books. So this is also awesome. I can do multiple books at a time. So this is quarter end, year end. This is a huge time saver at year end, by the way. This is where it's paying for itself. For the Premier version, if you match those, check those boxes I just rattled off. So I can have them all run at the same time. I can select my, my date, all those things, and I'll just click OK. So that's defined. Then if I want to define, this is where standardization comes into play, which hello is really important too. Then this is also each book at a time. Active assets are complete. You notice you don't see any custom groups here. Why? Because if you've ever seen any organization with 20 plus companies or more, multiple databases, multiple users, you'll know that that's a mess, that doesn't jive, and that's not going to be consistent across every single company. I've never seen that yet. Because fixed assets are messy. So we keep it very simple. Same with the standard reports. We keep those very simple too, because you can have different versions and that's not going to work. All right. So for now, we haven't figured out how to work. I mean, I think we can. It's just going to take a really long time to develop. So just be patient. So out here, we can also do the subtotals. So if we just wanted subtotals, we can also do the sorts of subtotals here. So we have all the same configuration options for these reports that we do within the system that we just showed you, but now I'm doing it on a global scale. Okay, and you go through all of these and define all of them every single time. So I'm going to say this is July 2025 run, right? Again, I don't need it for all books. I just need my internal book for this one. Disposal report, you can define your dates. Just a minute. Oops, actually I have the first. Oh, I know it's gonna scream at me for a second. I have to do it backwards here. 30, yep. And then, okay. And then I only want it for that. I don't need it for the tax. I mean, maybe I can, it depends. This is quarter end or not, but the choice is there, right? So I'm just defining these just for time purposes. I won't be here forever. And maybe just tax, because maybe there's just subsets that happens too. So, and then I click OK, and now it's here, and then I can run this batch. When I run this batch, I can send it to print, to Adobe, so print it just to PDF, to an action reporter, or I just send it to Excel. Okay, I say where to send it, and I hit run. I'm not gonna hit run because it'll take a while, but now it'll just run in the background. It'll do everything for you while you carry on with your day. Okay, and when it's done, you just go collect those reports. So this is where I really love global tasks. You can have as many as you need to create. I've created ones before that make sense, like quarterly processing, annual tax processing only, because they have different requirements, monthly processing, whatever you need. I also had something for PwC that had the same request every 6 months. They had a request, so I created one like that. So, just, whatever you need or somebody else needs is usually how that goes, right? So that's global task. And then finally, before we open for questions, is the utility reports. They're accessible in the system administrations navigation section. they're access utility reports, okay? These are just extra reports specifically designed for SOX compliance. And but these are amazing, and they're kind of a little hidden gem. So they take you through a wizard, and this allows you to select a report from the list for asset reports or company reports, security reports. This is where you can also see what your security profiles look like and who's still in there. So this means, I had Sue and Bob, they were here for a long time, they left, are they still part of the system? I don't know. And what access rights did they have? So I can give Bill and Jesse their same rights. We don't know. You can come in here and you can say profiles, access, all these different things, profile assignments, profile assignments by user, whatever you want to do, and you can go next. So depending on what your selection is, depends on what your next screen looks like. Company reports for customized reports, if you want to see what those are. My favorite ones are the asset reports. So in the asset reports, this is where we can print a little more detail on the asset history events of assets, smart list entries if we're trying to consolidate and make, consistency and standardization across different global chains. But what I really, really like, again, is this one, and I'll tell you why. So I go to asset history events, and I go next. I can select all the assets, and if I have multiple databases, I can select different companies and different databases. So again, options of selecting multiples. And then I come here, and then this is way cool. This is like another little report writer on itself with this particular selection. So here I can select just the basics, but I can also do date ranges or all. So if I just wanted to see particular asset history changes, like critical changes, cost, date, place of service date, those sort of things, for my active assets that are still depreciating through just a particular time frame, like a whole year or since forever, I could do that. And this is where I can say book information. So that's everything like I just spouted off: cost, place of service date, method, life. If I want to see what those changes were, who changed them, when, this is what I can choose. And I can suppress the data. I could do a page break over each asset. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that, but you can. But these are things that you can report on. And if I go next, then all of a sudden I can report everything. Now, this little box is because of me, so you're welcome. But this allows you to export everything out to Excel so that you can easily consolidate it yourself. So these are not consolidated, but these are pretty powerful. And with this little button, you can export. If this is really good, if you have multiple companies that you were trying to see all the adjustments, so that you could export these to Excel, put them together, and then you can create a reconciliation tab, or you could do whatever you wanted with VLOOKUPs. But otherwise, beforehand, you had to do export one at a time, and that was kind of a pain in the neck. So, so you can either export them all to Excel at once, and they will name them for you on their own, meaning the report engine will name those files for you. Or you can run report, which will run it to PDF or your printer. So these are really cool. I like to show these. I don't think we show them very often in training either, but they're pretty powerful, again, through system administration and access utility reports. It takes you through this little wizard. And again, just like everywhere in FAS, if you hit this little question box, it takes you to the help for that particular section. Okay. So, Tawny, I'll open it for questions.
All right. Woo, what a whirlwind. That was so much information, but so good and informative, Angie. So thank you. And thank goodness that we recorded this so everybody can go back and listen and really walk through the steps that you covered. So, but those were some hidden gems. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up for everyone. We do have a few questions already. Let's see if the system works for us and actually unmutes everyone. Nope, doesn't look like it. So let me try that one more time. No, I will unmute everyone, but I'm going to go ahead and ask that first question, Angie, and that is, let's see. Do I still have to enter a manual depreciation expense entry, or can this create the import file?
What was that? It's like a GL? Is that what we're asking?
I'm not
what was
really.
The question again? Just repeat the question.
Do I still have to enter a manual depreciation expense entry, or can this create the import file?
That's a good question. Depends on your accounting system, but there's a general ledger posting report. And I think a lot of people overlook this because it doesn't say GL posting report, quite honestly. But you can actually take your data and you can even reformat this to add subtotals and totals. And you can even customize a little bit of it. You can't customize the field set, but and then when you run the report, you can customize that report, or not customize, excuse me, you can export that report out to a CSV or Excel, which you can then use to import. So it's not the expense report, it's literally the GL expense report. But if you need more than that, you can talk to us about how to get something a little bit more customized for you. I know that like Oracle or SAP, for example, they have specific formatting that you need to then push that data back to the GL. And either we can create something with you, or we also have a custom GL export utility. It's a little extra money, but it's so worth it. And we can create it and customize it for you. And then it just runs, and it can just run for you in the background too, and get it exactly how you need it. We have lots of customers using that specifically for that reason. If you have other Sage family products like Sage Intact or another Sage 100 or Sage 500, we actually have, links for that are specifically seamless just to shoot your data back. And here is the GL post report. And if you didn't know already, you can export this report into a wide variety of formats to then import back into your GL. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Angie. Everyone should be unmuted now, but who knows if it actually works. So if you, Elizabeth Geistergeist, if I can call you out for a second, can you hear us and can you talk? I'm going to send you an unmute request.
I know she had a question of what report could use for audit roll forward, and it's the fixed asset summary.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's this fixed asset summary is the audit roll forward. And I've sent this particular report to Ernst & Young, PwC, all of them, and they love this report. So this is the one to utilize for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you, Angie. And then Elizabeth, appreciate that. She answered us back that yes, she can hear, and her questions have been answered. So that's terrific. Let's move on then to for a export feature. Are there export templates for CCH access?
So here is a tax link for CCH Pro Systems FX Tax. This is the other one that we have. I don't have it installed on my system, but if you need that, reach out to your salesperson and we can talk you through that on utilizing that link.
Thank you. I'm conscious of the time, so if anybody needs to hop off, we absolutely understand. Thank you for staying with us. If you have a question, take a moment to put it in the question box and we will make sure we get that answered for you offline. But then there's one from Donna. She says, never understood what the difference between a complete asset versus an active asset is.
Yeah, so a complete, so I'll talk about this. Out of the box, we have all these different groups that are created before you create one. So the all complete assets is everything in your database. So it includes disposed, inactive assets, partials, transfers, all that. It's everything, all encompassing, right? Specifically, the key there is inactive assets as well. Where active assets is just that, it's assets that are only active in your system, not inactive assets. And that's usually the difference. The difference when I report on an active asset versus all complete assets in depreciation, when I run depreciation on those two different ones, the active assets are only those that are active within the year you're currently reporting and depreciating, so 2025. If you did all complete assets, that's when you'll see like past disposals and stuff appear. And that's what throws people off, is those disposals of prior years. It just comes down to the group in which you're reporting on that will eliminate those prior year disposals off your reports. So keep that in mind.
Thank you. And I appreciate, Donna, that you asked the question because nobody should be intimidated. This is the place to really ask these questions.
Yeah, and I'll just touch base really fast that incomplete, since we're talking about these, all incomplete assets are pertaining to assets that were created in the asset inventory tracking module that now need to be picked up in our subledger to be depreciated on. So if it's blank because you don't have the tracking system, or you have the tracking system, but you're not adding assets that share the same database.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions out there? If you have them, say them or pop them into our questions box. If not, I think that might be our last questions for today.
Thank you, everybody. If you have questions afterwards, reach out to myself or your sales rep, and we can answer them for you for sure.
All right, Angie, thank you so much as always. What
Yeah.
a plethora of knowledge. We all appreciate it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next one.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your day.
You too.